everything is relative. I'm talking about using this sub from my perspective of using it in a really small room, 12 feet wide by 11 feet deep, and open on one side. If you have a dedicated theater room or a massive living room, you most likely won't experience what I am. When it comes to subwoofers in the hi-fi space, a lot of times the thinking is that you shouldn't hear the subwoofer. It should add that extra little bit of spaciousness and depth without overwhelming the sound. And then there's the type of enthusiast like me that just loves oomph. We're not the type that needs a seamless blend. We like impact. We like to feel the impact, and we love us some bass. But if you do live in a small condo like me, any sub larger than 10 inches is a behemoth, and I mostly resign myself to smaller subs that don't dominate a larger area in my room and do just enough. And then I lay awake at night dreaming of the monster subwoofer of my future. Until I actually get one. And then that monster subwoofer is a bit of a nightmare. And of course, if you wouldn't mind liking the video, subscribe to the channel, help me out a ton, help me get more products like this in for review, I would really appreciate it. Thanks. When Arendal said, hey, we're going to send you our smallest theater package alongside our smallest subwoofer, I was overjoyed because very rarely do I get a full theater system in-house. I normally just get 2 fronts and a center, and then I just make do with whatever subwoofer I have on hand. But when I did receive Arendal's smallest subwoofer, the 1S, and I got it unboxed, I was taken aback. The thing is huge. My room is small. It's a bit too small for the Arendal 1723S package that I reviewed, and it's far too small for this subwoofer. And in my small room, it's like having a console table next to my couch. To Arendal, small is a 13.8-inch driver mated to an Avalanche 800 IQ amplifier that goes down to about 10 Hz or so. The enclosure is not small either, 18.9 inches high, 13.2 inches wide, and 17.7 inches deep. It weighs 57.3 pounds. It's built out of HDF, features a magnetic grille, and it's available in satin black, satin white, high gloss black, and high gloss white. You get a 2.6-inch color LCD display. The cool thing about the tiny little screen is that in the menu, you can actually flip it so you don't have to read it upside down if you're bending over your subwoofer. It's a nice little touch. It's dual source assignable with RCA and XLR inputs with assignable memory presets for each input. This is something I love because my living room is dual purpose. I listen to music and watch movies in there. And being able to connect both the integrated and the receiver to the same subwoofer means that I don't have to run an extra wire and a subwoofer cable for an extra subwoofer in my room if I didn't want to. I can connect them both to the subwoofer and then just assign the subwoofer for home theater when I'm watching movies or music if I'm doing that. So kind of cool. Frequency response at EQ1 is 18 Hz to 200 Hz. At EQ2, it's 25 Hz to 200 Hz. And at EQ3, it's 36 Hz to 200 Hz. And then, of course, there are a bunch of settings that I just didn't dive into. There are more advanced settings that are more for custom installers or hardcore theater enthusiasts. I'm not going to just read through the specs and just regurgitate them for you because that's just, who wants to watch that? I'll leave a link down below and then you can follow that to read up about all of those if you're curious or keen. They're just a bit out of my depth. The first task at hand was trying to figure out exactly where to put the subwoofer to get not only the best bass response, but also to not trip over it in my living room. And it turns out there was one perfect place for this subwoofer. And now it is the place that I place every other subwoofer that I get in for review. If I placed it against the floor-to-ceiling windows in my living room, I got great bass response. I got great bass response without dominating my living room. Strangely, even though the sub was relegated to that position, it and other subwoofers work perfectly there. With the monitor as THX placed on stands about 8 feet apart on either side of my media unit, on top of it is my TV, and below it is the gigantic center speaker, which is sandwiched by the Marantz Cinema 60 and one of 2 integrated amplifiers. The product of the year 2024, the Cambridge Audio Evo 150 and the Macintosh MA5300. The surrounds were the 1723 Surround S THX speakers. Now, if you didn't see the Arendal 1723 Monitor S theater package review, I encourage you to watch that. I talk about the full theater package and the home cinema experience with it. Here, I'm just going to talk about what the subwoofer added. And across the board, at risk of just sounding, well, I am a noob, but at risk of sounding like a noob, it was just awesome. It just rocked. And primarily because, as I've mentioned many times, that my room is small, I never had to push this subwoofer to its absolute limit. Hopefully one day I'll be able to do that sort of test, but I don't want to be evicted anytime soon, so I didn't. But what it added for music was just that full low-end presence that I personally enjoy. I know the audiophile way is to have your subwoofer integrate with your music so that it doesn't draw any attention to itself and just fills in that lower end. I personally just like a little bit extra. I like to feel and hear the grunt of the bass. A lot of the music that I listen to is future electronic bass heavy music, and so being able to hear a more defined present bass line just brings joy to my heart. It reminds me of my club days. And that's what I was able to do with the subwoofer. It was never once straining. I never heard it bottom out. It was able to hit all the low notes that I needed it to hit with my music. But honestly, I don't have a bad word to say about the subwoofer. If you are looking at a subwoofer like this, hopefully you have a room that is slightly larger than mine so that you're able to maximize this subwoofer's potential. Now for movies, the word for the 1723 Monitor S package was immersion, along with like ambience and subtlety. But with the subwoofer, just focusing on the subwoofer, those words count, but then also grunt. Watching Prey, it's the best of the Predator sequels. There's a fair amount of grunt. I mean, it's the Predator. He's killing people, things are blowing up, there's violent action scenes, and this subwoofer was able to just pound along and fill in that low end, like heft and grunt and whatever those words are, to make me feel the impact of whatever was going on screen. But then I also remarked in that Monitor S package review that it was the quiet moments that really counted, where like the main character, I forgot her name, she's walking across the Great Plains and you feel like you're hearing more of the ambience or the environment. That's the word. I feel like I'm hearing more of the environment. And when I did turn off the subwoofer, a little bit of that was brought, not down, I guess, but just disappeared. And with the subwoofer on, I was just aware of how much more there was to the sound field with it engaged. And then, of course, watching Arrival, one of my favorite sci-fi movies in the last decade. It's right up there with Interstellar for me, except with Arrival, I cry every single time. If you have kids, you know what I'm talking about. But in the scenes on the alien spacecraft, when the scientists are talking to the heptapods, the scale difference between the scientists talking and then the heptapods talking, or whatever the heck sounds they're making, is really noticeable. And the subwoofer just played a big part in the, not just the impact, but the scale difference between the scientists and the heptapods. And every thud of them walking, or like that, whatever sound that they're making, was just extra noticeable. Also on the subwoofer, it was really nice to have an app on hand to turn down the volume so my neighbors don't hate me any more than they most likely already do. And then, of course, there is my neighbor's favorite time of day when I test the wormhole scene from Interstellar on any cinema package. And with this one, I mean, holy hell, I'm just happy there's no shelves nearby for things to fall off of, because I'm sure that they would have during this scene with this in play. And I tested this out during the day, so hopefully there was no one else working remotely from home where this scene completely interrupted their Zoom call, but yeah, it was awesome. I've remarked in many other reviews, and even in the 1723 Monitor S review, that I really can't wait to move. I can't wait to have a larger space for which to enjoy a proper home theater package in. And when I do find a space like that, I'm going to be looking at the Arendal package. I'm going to be looking at one or maybe multiple of their subwoofers just because they're awesome. And I can't wait to see what actually pushing a system like this to its limit would actually sound and feel like. Thanks for watching.